Hello, it's Kevin Annett. I've written something very important from the heart, and it's for all of you, but it's especially directed at all those United Church members today who continue to fund the filth and its lies every Sunday morning with a sweet hymn on their lips. It's entitled Vicky Sepass, My Role in Her Death and My Own. Thomas Zaz has said, punishment is now unfashionable. We prefer a meaningless collective guilt to a meaningful individual responsibility. The Southern News Service reported in April 2000, the federal government of Canada conducted experiments on First Nations children in residential schools. One of the schools was located in Port Alberni. She was slightly older than me, but we would have been in the same grade in United Church Sunday School class, which we both attended as children. Every worship day, I wore a proper suit and tie and clutched my little white offering envelope in which a single Canadian dollar would help fill the coffers of what the United Church still calls its Mission and Service Fund. Vicky Sepass wore a shabby grey uniform, however, and had nothing to put in the collection plate on Sundays, for she herself was the offering. For me, church life began in a leafy Winnipeg suburb known as River Heights at a church called Westworth United. But for Vicky, it began and it ended within the dank and cold walls of Port Alberni Indian Residential School. She died there sometime during the month of March in the year 1965, when she and I were both 9 years old. I helped pay for her murder. It may have taken up to a month for Vicky Sepass to starve to death in the special isolation cell in which she was held and denied food and studied by military doctors as she slowly wasted away. It was all part of an experiment to test human endurance to torture and trauma, arranged through an agreement between the United Church of Canada and the Defence Research Board in Ottawa. Test subjects were routinely raped, beaten, and starved to death, and their responses and mental alacrity all carefully noted. Kenny Quattel, who survived a similar experiment at the Nanaimo Indian Hospital, also run by the United Church, has said, "They always raped me whenever they had me strapped down. I got it every day like clockwork." The money to fund these so-called experiments came through a joint sharing agreement between the federal government and the United Church, the latter relying on its Mission and Service Fund and my faithful giving to it every Sunday. At the time, I was told that my offering would go towards accomplishing God's work, just like United Church parishioners are still told. Well, perhaps it's part of any possible recompense I can make to Vicky Sepass, that one day my life too would be destroyed by the very same Mission and Service Fund that killed her, barely a mile from where she died. For as an untraceable slush fund, Mission and Service paid the lawyers and black op experts who arranged the destruction of both my family and my position as minister at St. Andrew's United Church, and who continue to conceal what the church did to both Vicky and me. The little white offering envelopes are still clutched every Sunday morning by the next young crop of unwitting killers. It's still business as usual for the Mission and Service Fund, since of course the United Church got away with all of its atrocities and made itself feel good and smug in the process. Normally, funds that are used for criminal purposes would be seized by the courts, but this is Canada, and the killers are still in charge. Now, after decades of battling this beast and not changing it, I've realized what many social activists sense but rarely acknowledge, that we cannot bring down something that we ourselves are a part of. Rarely do we put ourselves into the equation of systemic evil, for the enemy and the real problem is always something and someone other than ourselves. But I remember my blood money in that little white envelope and the joyful hymns and congratulatory praise I helped to heap on a church that was dissecting Vicky Sepass like a lab rat at that very same moment. And it was only when I fully embraced my role in her death and suffering that something in me was free to step away from it and to disestablish that church and all that it represents, first within my own heart and then in the world. Well, as the Bible that's still quoted so often in the United Church, as it reminds us, Repenting from evil and our own complicit guilt in it isn't about indulging in a lot of gestures and apologetic talk. Rather, it's about actively walking away from and bringing to nothing whatever caused the evil. If I've been able to help accomplish that, it's because I knew first that I was a denizen of that dark city, and I had to leave it without looking back, lest, like Lot's wife, gazing longingly at Sodom and Gomorrah, I be consumed in its final destruction. And that demise of these false and fallen churches is approaching. As for Vicky Sepass and all those children who will die tomorrow at the hands of unaccountable power, they remain more than anything a legion of searching, implacable eyes, and an enormous and enduring question mark directed at each one of us, but especially at all of those slumbering United Church members who today keep funding the filth and its lies with a sweet hymn on their lips. I'm Kevin Annett, itccs.org. I thank you.